Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the ENN podcast from the film Exiles. And this is a special episode. Today, we're just going to focus on one topic, and it's going to be this revealing, insightful article in Vanity Fair, and it is titled The True Story of Justice League. The shocking, exhilarating, heartbreaking true story of hashtag the Snyder Cut. And joining me today to break it all down like it's never been broken before are two road warriors, two of my homies. When I'm going into war, into battle against all those trolls under those wrecked bridges in the wasteland, I would rather have no one beside me but these guys, Christian and Manu. Christian, welcome to the podcast.
Once again, you say something that's like, I can't live up to it, man.
It's the truth, though. And that's all I can offer.
But I feel the love.
The truth.
I feel the love, though, so I'm happy about that. But hey, it's good to be here, and it's good to hear from both of you guys.
All right, cool. As usual, I'm glad to hear your, sort of outsider / insider, 1 foot in, 1 foot out perspective.
Yes, sir.
Is in case you guys don't know, Christian is sort of like our Marvel resident expert. So he always gives us a really well-balanced perspective. And also joining us is Manu.
How you guys doing, man? It's good to be on. It's been a while. I've missed talking to you both. And it doesn't matter if Christian can't live up to it. I'll carry the load as I always seem to
do. Of course.
You said load.
Thank you for making both of our
back.
Thank you for making both of our points.
The swag is back. All right, gentlemen. So let's get into this article. And the way we're going to do is we're going to break it down by sections. And so let's start. Zack Snyder, the director of Justice League, has never seen Justice League. His name is in the credits as the filmmaker, but he's never sat through the version released to the world 3 years ago. His wife, Deborah, who produced the movie, advised him not to. In late 2017, months after the couple cut ties with the superhero epic amid an increasingly demoralizing battle with Warner Brothers, Deborah Snyder sat in a screening room on the studio lot alongside Christopher Nolan, one of the movie's executive producers, as well as the director of the Dark Knight trilogy. She braced herself as the lights went down. It was just a weird experience, she says now. I don't know how many people have that experience. You've worked on something for a long time, and then you leave, and then you see what happened to it. What happened to Justice League was a crisis of infinite doubt. A team of execs who'd lost faith in the architect of their faltering comic book movie empire, and a director in the midst of a family tragedy that sapped him of the will to fight. Joss Whedon, a director from another universe, the Marvel Cinematic one, left the Avengers after 2 movies and crossed over to comics rival DC, picking up Justice League, not where Snyder left off, but remaking it significantly with extensive rewrites and hurried reshoots, just as the studio demanded. On November 17, 2017, the team-up between Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Aquaman, and The Flash did not so much debut in theaters as crash into them. It was sneered at by critics, shrugged at by baffled moviegoers, and all but disowned by those who'd created it. He forgets to say that it was also disavowed by DC fans. Whedon has since been accused of unprofessional and abusive behavior on set. The director declined repeated requests for comments. He left his name off the movie except to claim a shared writing credit with Chris Terrio, who had written Snyder's previous installment, 2016's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. So I think that's a good place to sort of take a break and let's go over what we've read so far. I know you guys have read the article before, so you have, some preliminary thoughts. So I'd like to start with Manu. Manu, what's your thoughts on what we've read so far?
Well, for those of us that have been here since day one, like it's none of this is really news. This is all things that we know that we've heard, except the Nolan bit, which is probably my favorite bit of it all, because I can just imagine Christopher Nolan watching Justice League and just being like,
Just
"Why
being
am I
yes.
here?" So I think that's my favorite bit from what we've read so far. But for those of us that have been here since day one, this is all stuff we know. But except the bit about Whedon keeping his name off of the movie, I think he wanted his name more on the movie, but it was not acceptable through to the Directors Guild rules. I think that was the reason. But all in all, so far it's fine so far. It's just going over the general story for an audience that hadn't really taken it all in, and I think that this piece is aimed at that particular population.
Hmm. Hmm. All right, Christian, what do you think of what we've read so far?
I think Manu hit on a lot of really good points right there. And even if you're not into the fandom, even if you like, you and I have been talking about, I just completed my entire DC rewatch, and Warner Brothers blowing crap up is seems to just be like this running thing
Mm.
throughout their DC journey, just destroying what came before it, trying to rework it. So this is a nice opening introduction, if you will, that kind of sets the stage for here we go yet again, except there's probably going to be a couple different wrinkles in here that maybe you didn't know about.
Hmm.
And definitely the Nolan thing was a big one for me. I had no idea about that. I'm not going to pretend like I did. And the one thing I'll note one more time before I throw it back to you, Lupe, and we've said this in what, 5, 6 episodes now, like whoever the higher ups were, whoever made this decision that this is what they were going to do, you set me up as like the Marvel fan at the beginning, and it's like this didn't even please us. So this was
Hmm.
a failure across every spectrum. It
Mm.
a colossal failure, and yeah, I think it's a good setup for that to get people to interested to move forward and read the story.
Yeah, yeah. Personally, I mean, I'm someone, who's been very close to this situation for years, so most of this isn't news to me. I think looking at the article, I'm always looking for a balanced, unbiased recollection so that people who are reading the story get the truth about it. And from what I can see, um, where I have a little bit of issue with it is that just starting off, I don't think that it's taken into account the perspective of DC fans, DCEU fans, people who had been along for the ride since Man of Steel. I think that the line where it talks about how critics sneered at it, moviegoers were baffled, and those who created it disowned it. I think that you can see that the writer of this article, Anthony Bresnikan, doesn't understand DC fans or doesn't think that the perspective of DC fans is important.
Yeah, that's kind of. I'm sorry that's kind of what I was gonna say. We don't matter. We never have. That's kind of been the whole point of this whole thing. It's just that everybody acted like we didn't exist for how long? Like it's just. I mean, for me, I'm just used to it by now. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
It's just
mhm.
what we've been used to. We don't count. We don't matter. But carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 you're right. And so for people who are listening to this, if you're part of the Snyder Cut DCEU fandom, or if you're not, I want you to be aware that that's a very important omission by this journalist. It's a blind spot in his vision. Also, I also found it very interesting the line where they talk about disowned by those who created it, and talk about the hurried reshoots just as the studio demanded. And it's this corporate speak where the studio is this nameless, faceless entity. Meanwhile, we know that it's people making these decisions, and many of the people who are making those decisions are actually featured in this article. And there's this sort of mea culpa, um, attempt to wash their hands off the issue. Meanwhile, it's them that created this mess in the first place. So as we go through this article, it's just going to be very fun to see how people try to distance themselves from the decisions that they made and blame those decisions on quote unquote the studio. When it's like, my guy, you are the studio. At whatever level of executive decision making they find themselves, whether it's mid management or upper tiers of management, you are the studio. You made those decisions. You ensured that this saga, happened. So publicly, everyone close to the movie practiced their smiles and rehearsed their talking points in the hopes of doing no further damage to the project. Not that it helped much. The movie earned $657 million globally, which sounds like a lot of money until you consider the nearly $300 million budget, including the reported $25 million for Whedon's work, plus a conservative estimate of $100 million to $150 million for marketing costs. Factor in the sizable cuts theaters take from box office and a return of only $657 million. It's a clear money loser. 6 months later, Justice League's box office was dwarfed by Marvel's own all-star showcase Avengers, which flexed its muscles to $2 billion. What do you guys think of this section? He goes into a little bit of talking about, like box office and box office expectations and just painting that picture using the box office returns. Let's start with Christian.
Yeah, I think Manu and I were talking about this a little earlier. There's not much to say about this particular paragraph. I mean, this is studio speak, marketing speak, Hollywood accounting speak, if you will. And of course, it's all about the money. Every movie's got to make $1 billion. The studio executives have that in their mind, blah, 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 and set the thing up for failure automatically. And then they could pin the blame on whoever they wanted to after it was done, right? After the failure is complete.
Yep.
Well, whose name's on the project?
Yep, absolutely. Manu, what do you think?
I think something that I've noticed in this piece and even in the I think it was the Hollywood Reporter piece last May when it was announced that the cut was coming. It's again, like you said, the same corporate speech. It's trying to insulate and protect the people who did make these decisions that led us to the what's the word I'm looking for? Damn, I had it at the tip of my tongue, but it'll come back to the failure that was Justice League, and here we have it again. And I think it's unfortunate. I wish, but it's just how these things work. Because these people are still currently working at Warner Brothers, and
yes, they are.
So they're never going to be attacked directly as long as they still have power. So it's unfortunate, but it is as we'd expect. Oh, and the word I was going to say before is that Justice League is an institutional failure. It's a failure from the whole entire studio. Many people had to make mistakes for that to occur. So I think that it's a shame that we can't talk. Like, again, I like this article. I think it's a very good article, but it really does a good job of presenting facts in a very peculiar way.
I agree. I think for me, what stands out to me is that this whole discussion about box office is absolutely, totally, 100% pure, organic, homegrown, free range, grade A horse shit.
I have no idea where you're going with all that.
Well, I
A lot of adjectives in there.
I landed on the bullseye because I'm tired of hearing it. The reason why this tragedy happened in terms of the movie itself, okay, let's be respectful to the larger picture, keeping that in mind, is because of the narrative around box office and expectations and the media using it as a narrative tool to push whatever agenda they want to. Oh, this movie failed because it didn't do as much as this. This movie, is a success because it made this. But then when another movie that they like doesn't make that much, they don't talk about the box office, or if it's mentioned, it's minimized. It's this whole obnoxious thing about box office. We don't want to hear it. Like honestly, it's irrelevant to the discussion. These are two separate movie franchises. The whole Marvel DC comparison thing is asinine, and it needs to stop. One of the unfortunate uh, externalities, it's a positive externality of the fall of Justice League from Joss Whedon, is that those comparisons stopped. We stopped really having those, Marvel movies made 1 billion, and it was like everybody just accepted DC movies are not going to make Marvel money. And that's pretty much what fans had been saying the entire time. That people, whether it's from the studio or to journalists, need to get it through their thick skulls that DC movies are not going to make as much as Marvel. Marvel, they started their cinematic universe at the right time. They started first, and they got there first, and then they got all these fans. And that's just fine. As long as DC movies make a decent amount of money and can make a profit, then things are fine. With Justice, it didn't, So.
I agree with you, but I do feel like the reason why this paragraph on box office is here is to show just how much of a failure Justice League was. I think that is like the writer's primary intent. It's to show just how much all of these decisions and all of this, like, for lack of a better word, I'm sure there's a better word, but I like this word. All of this pussyfooting that Warner Brothers did led to this immense failure. And again, because I think this piece is really trying to, in its own way, elevate Snyder above a lot of this, like you said, bullshit that was laid on his doorstep. And I think that the failure of Justice League in every single possible measure is just ferments that idea.
Yeah, I do agree with that, but I think it is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I agree with you as well. But yeah, definitely.
Because at the end of the day, for us movie lovers, if we love the movie and it didn't make $2 billion,
We don't care.
Don't care. Like Batman v Superman made $800 million. Avengers: Infinity War made $2 billion, and I think that Batman v Superman outclasses Avengers: Infinity War anytime, any day. And there's no amount of box office prognostication you're going to throw that's going to change my mind. And someone might think otherwise, but box office should not be the reason why. But I do understand
that are made $200 million, and I love them. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. What made $200 million?
As I said, there's a bunch of movies in my collections that have not made good money. Made 200 million, 150, maybe 300, whatever. But that should not be why I like that movie. The movie spoke to me for a reason. But a lot of people in studios, executives, whatever, to them, gotta be. They put a dollar amount at the beginning and say you got to hit that. And if you don't, we can pin the blame on whoever we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think if we're going into there, we're talking about like a bigger societal and that goes into like so many other things, and because we've come to a point where art and cinema and these movies are basically like sports. It's like the box office number is nothing more or less than a scoreboard at the end of the day at this point. So
exactly, and we need to move away from that. And we need, and collectively, as people who read these things, as people who engage with journalists, we need to begin to reject these ideas and begin to reject what is being force-fed us. Box office should not be something that we're engaging with so fervently, and it's because they've artificially drummed up a market for it to feed themselves. That's what it is. Okay, so let's move on. So the next paragraph is a fun one, and I'd like Christian to talk about this one. It's after their private screening of the Whedon Cut, Nolan and Deborah Snyder emerged into the light with a shared mission. They came and they just said, "You can never see this movie." Zack Snyder says during lunch at his Pasadena office, a modernist set of cubes jutting from a hillside that overlooks the Rose Bowl. "Because I knew it would break his heart," his wife adds. "That might seem overly dramatic. It's just show business after all, but the Snyder's hearts had already been through a lot. The battle over Justice League was agonizing. but it wasn't the worst thing to happen to their family that year, not even close. So, Christian, what do you think about this paragraph, this juicy bit of information?
Ouch. Ouch. Like that's painful in so many ways. It's painful in an emotional human way. It's painful realizing that his work being cut up and all this other stuff, and he pours himself into it, right? He's a really passionate person. That's still not the worst thing that happened to the family that year. Obviously, we know what did happen, so that hurts. And it also stings that they were like, no, 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 this piece of crap is so bad that we cannot show it to him in any way, shape, or form. So that paragraph just slices on so many different levels, and it hurts. It just hurts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's yeah. Um, you nailed it. You nailed it. It's almost like for creators, their creations, they sometimes call them their babies.
Yep.
So it's almost like having this double, and that's the way I always saw it, honestly. I always saw it as it was this double tragedy, you know. Two things that Zack created, a child and a film, both, lost. Obviously, life itself is much more important than a film, but also people pour their hearts and their souls and themselves into these creations, and the relationship artists have to creations is one that people shouldn't take for granted. That's the reason why Deborah Snyder said he can't see it. It is that serious. It is, but it's not as serious as what we're getting into next, which is professionally, at least, things have vastly improved. For years, DC fans and Snyder enthusiasts who worshipped his high-octane brawn fests, like his Dawn of the Dead remake, his ancient Greek battle saga 300, and his Twisted Watchmen adaptation, beat a drum on social media demanding that Warner Brothers return Justice League to its original filmmaker and allow him to share his version of the movie. They dubbed it the Snyder Cut. The fans could be clever, but many were horrifically toxic. All of them were relentless, and they grew more numerous over time. Last May, they finally got their wish when Warner saw their potential to leverage all the free publicity and do something unprecedented for its upstart streaming service, HBO Max. It's not uncommon for directors to lose creative control of big-budget studio spectacles or for other filmmakers to step in, but it's unheard of for a studio to return an exiled filmmaker and offer back the power and creative freedom it has yanked away, especially when some of the most beloved and lucrative characters in pop culture history are involved. The Snyder Cut is coming March 18th. So, Manu, I want you to talk on this, especially from the perspective of a long time DCU/Snyder fan.
Well, I'll start off by saying y'all heard it. Zack Snyder is in exile, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
Facts. I mean, what is there? I don't really know. I don't really have the words for it. I don't understand this line. The fans could be clever, but many were horrifically toxic. Like, I think that it's a very intentional choice of words. I understand talking about the perceived negativity in the fandom. I just don't think that this right here is where it should have been. I thought that it really does a disservice to what the fandom has done as a whole, and what this story should be centered on, which is Zack and his journey. I think that to take what you could call a right turn at this part of the essay is a very intended choice, and that's something that I'd like to get into a little bit later in the article. But I just felt that this lacked a little bit of tact, and like an edit there could have done a lot of good for the overall of the piece. But overall, I think that again, especially that like last paragraph about how uncommon what has occurred is, how this is really this is like new ground that we've broken onto. I think it's really important because I've said this for a long time. I don't feel like a lot of people that are in the movement actually understood what it was we were attempting to accomplish. Like, I don't think they understood the stakes that were at play, or the the towering pushback that we were always going to have because of the fact that we're going up against a multi-billion-dollar international company. So I think that this really does a good job of showing just how unique this whole situation was. I just wish that, that line was not there.
I think Manu nailed it. There's nothing more to say. I think he nailed it. My thoughts exactly. And for people who are not aware of things and are reading it, they might come across that, and they'll be like, what is this about? But there is this agenda that permeates and infects what is an otherwise good article, and we'll get into it. Then we have some really cool pictures from 300 and from Watchmen. I really love that Rorschach picture. It looks like it's a little bit maybe overexposed, or but just that haziness gives it a little bit of texture and a little bit of character. Just a long line in Zack Snyder's amazing filmography. All right, so the next section says, for the director's devotees, it's a Hollywood ending for a Hollywood story. But for the truly devastating thing that happened to Zack Snyder and his loved ones in 2017, there can be no fix, no do-over. In the throes of the conflict with Warner Brothers, the Snyder's 20-year-old daughter, home from college in the middle of a long struggle with depression, took her own life. After 2 years spent largely focused on their other children and extended family, Zack and Deborah went back to work, a difficult but vital part of the healing process. When they spoke to Vanity Fair for this story, they were completing Army of the Dead, a zombie-filled heist extravaganza that will launch a new multi-pronged franchise for Netflix, as well as restoring Zack's original vision for Justice League. The latter will be a 4-hour event for HBO Max that will raise money for suicide prevention programs that could help spare others the grief that shook his family. Their daughter's death was the reason the Snyders walked away from justice, realizing their fight and spirit was needed at home with their other children and with each other, rather than in a losing battle with a powerful studio. Now, she's the main reason he decided to come back. At the end of the movie, it says for Autumn, Snyder says, sitting in the shadows of a darkened editing suite, frames from the movie frozen on the screens around him. When he talks about his daughter, the otherwise scrappy, ebullient 54-year-old filmmaker always looks away. Without her, this absolutely would not have happened. So, Christian, how does this section, impact you?
Um, this particular, I'm going to take it for granted that you guys and anybody listening is probably sick of me saying it time and again, but I think it's important to get the awareness out there. And I'm a suicide attempt survivor. I have clinical depression. I'm going through something right now as we speak. I'm trying to get myself out of it. This particular passage in these couple of paragraphs here are painful to read in a lot of ways. And that's what you do when you're fighting through something like this. You focus on your work. In my case, I focus on my music. I play guitar, things like that. And to have something taken from you when you try to put yourself into it is devastating. And my mother and father told me what they would have felt like if I had actually gone through and I was able to kill myself. I could only imagine what he and Deborah feel every single day. So I think it's really important. I like the full circle here, that it is going to say for Autumn at the end that she's still the reason that we have this movie in a lot of ways, and that's amazing. And I think it's more important for people to focus too on the suicide prevention, money raising, and things like that. I always think that that's something that needs to be talked about, because we tend to talk about how we're getting our cape movies, and that's wonderful that we're getting Superman and Batman, but that this part of it needs to be talked about sometimes, I think, earlier in a lot of these articles, exposés, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on it. This particular piece made me very emotional reading it.
Mm-hmm. Um, Manu, what do you have to say about this? Anything in particular stick out to you? Any,
No,
good
I
parts?
can't. There's nothing much I can add to what Christian said. I think this is some of the better parts of the piece right here.
I mean, for me, I'm still quite critical of this article because, as I said from the beginning, the error in this entire thing is that the journalist did not seek out the perspective of the fans. He's written this entire thing with no knowledge of who the fans are, with no respect for the fans. I mean that literally and figuratively, um, because he writes it as if oh, the fans are getting their whatever, but this is there's actually like a bigger issue for the Snyders than just a movie that the fans are pining over, and that shows a complete ignorance on the issues at hand. I always tell people the reason why the movement for the Snyder Cut was so sustained, so passionate, and so powerful was because it was never about one thing. The Snyder Cut coming to fruition for the vast majority of the fandom was about maybe five, six things. It was about Zack Snyder being wronged. Okay, we're talking about someone who's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, so generous and gracious, and for years being attacked so much by narratives and people, just like a mob of zombies, pun intended, who have been worked up into a frenzy for no good reason, and it leads to the point where he has this terrible career, tragedy. Then also for artistic freedom, we always talk about that, but that's something that a lot of people who are not part of this fandom just won't understand. That a lot of people who are Zack Snyder fans and part of this fandom truly love his movies because they represent something to us bigger than just entertainment. They represent art, and we are lovers of art. And it might be nerdy or goofy or whatever, and people might not understand it, but that's fine. We do, and we take that very seriously. So for us, it was important to fight for this type of movie. Then you also have the Justice League, DC, the stories we've been following, there is that as well, which whenever you see a lot of these movements pop up, it's because of that. They've been following these stories and they want the stories to continue the way they've been told. And then obviously the fact that a lot of us are actual DC fans and we want to see the characters in the best light possible, at least in our subjective interpretation. Then on top of that is the death of Autumn Snyder. Like for us, we felt so much for the entire Snyder family that coupled with all these things going on, then you have this terrible suicide. What can we do for this family, for this man, to make his life easier in any way we can? Obviously, you can't, but it's the effort that counts. And that's part of why when we were campaigning for the Snyder Cut, a lot of people were asking, when is it going to come out? Like, oh, I don't think I can. But for me, the process was as rewarding as whatever result was going to come from it. Because I knew that the Snyders were getting a lot of comfort, were getting a lot of community, and getting a lot of blessing just from us as a fan rallying so ferociously and so powerfully behind them under this banner for Autumn. But the journalist who wrote this article never thought to find out why the fans were doing what they were doing. He just assumes that it was just to see a movie and that they were not affected by Autumn's death and what that means, and that they have no regard for this part of the story. And that's just completely, totally, utterly false and very disrespectful. And why this article, to me, is a failure on many levels. I'm sorry that was a passionate, long-winded speech, but that really needed to be said because that's very, very very, very important to me. And I know to this fandom, it's very important to us. We didn't raise, $500,000 just because for the fun of it. You know, the tragedy that the Snyders have gone through is dear to our hearts, and our hearts bleed for their family, and we wish that Zack had never had to go through this, and for a lot of us, we just feel like, you know what, you went through this, but we got your back. Watch, we're going to turn this situation around as much as we can for you. And the fact that he didn't highlight that is a huge shame, and such a disappointing thing when I read through the article. So anyway, rant over. Sorry I took too much time. Make it up to you guys. Let's continue. So the next section, says their daughter's death was the reason the Snyders walked away from Justice League. We've read that section. Okay, then we come to these pictures of Joker. My oh my. ain't this something? I woke up and I saw the picture of Jared Leto as in the Christ pose, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, here we go again. I thought we were gonna have just one day of peace. And Zack Snyder was like, no, you have to get out there and get amongst the haters, and it triggered a lot of people. Guys, what do you think of the image, particularly of Jared Leto's Joker, the Christ-like imagery?
It was funny because at first when I looked at it, how like everybody makes fun of the cult of Leto. Right, like he's got, and then right away I was like, wait a second, is that an official? I honestly had to look it up to make sure that was like official and everything, because it was before I actually read the article. I saw the pictures being circulated around. I was like, wait, is somebody making fun of like the fact that like there's this like Leto 30 Seconds to Mars cult going on and everything? So once I got that out of there, they're interesting. This is, I mean, I guess it goes hand in hand with we all have that theory or whatever, that this is all part of the nightmare, whether it's the present or the future. This version of the Joker is out there. It's different. I don't know how much more I can add, but they're creepy, and that's the kind of Joker that he is. He's creepy. So it just piqued my interest even more. But this is out there.
It really is. Manu, what do you think?
When I saw the picture, my first thought was, "What the fuck is Zack doing over there?"
I know.
That's
dude,
it. It's like, yo, Zack, what's going on? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
please.
I have no idea. I don't. You know what? I don't even care. This, we'll see it when the movie comes out in a few weeks. But like, what are you doing over there, Zack? Like, and I think that honestly, seeing this brought a little bit of like happiness to me, because what I love about, like, Zack has been like raked over the coals for like years about his choices, and he's like, yeah, okay, here's Jesus Joker. Like, it's just like, I just think that it's just like, I love that, even now he's still willing to push the boundaries, which is something that I feel this genre has been missing since his departure back in 2016.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. Like and I'll always lead it back to to the fans who I really appreciate, and they should probably. The reason why Zack is able to do stuff like this is because he's emboldened by the fans. Let's make no mistake about that, because he knows he's got haters out there. It's all good, but you know what he's also got? He's got a legion of fans, and that's one of the lessons that I hope that people can take from this saga, and one of the blessings I hope that we can each have in our lives. Stay focused in life. Don't look at the people who hate you. Don't look at the people who relentlessly criticize you and don't see the God in you, who don't see the godness inside of you. Focus on those who love you. If Warner Brothers had focused on the fact that they had fans, instead of trying to please their haters, they would be winning. And they decided not to, but Zack Snyder decided to. He caters to his fans. He is in conversation with them, in dialogue, in touch with them on a ground level. And because of that, they're there for him. And so he's like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to push the bounds. When Zack leaves Warner Brothers and goes to Netflix, Guess who's coming with him? Every single Snyder fan. You know what I'm saying? If Netflix doesn't work out and he goes to Paramount, guess who's coming with him? His fandom. So I
And
think that
Christian.
as Christian, his fandom plus
Somehow
plus
I got.
Christian. All right, guys. Let's go on to the next section. Let's try to speed this up a little bit. Zach and his then wife Denise Weber adopted Autumn when she was just one, a little over one. He says, smiling at the memory of her wild energy. Still an infant, but crazy. Autumn was slightly older than the couple's son Eli. They had two more children before they divorced. Snyder had two sons with line producer Kirsten Ellen before marrying Deborah, his longtime producing partner in 2004, with whom he adopted two more children. The filmmaker has often said that being an adoptive father is one of the reasons he was so invested in the story of Kal-El, a powerful being who became Superman thanks to the love and care of Jonathan and Martha Kent. More than 3 years after Autumn's death, Snyder still slips between the past and the present tense when talking about her. She's the only dork, he says, of his family. She was the only fan. The rest of them, he shrugs. Today, Eli is interested in filmmaking, but Autumn was the one of his children who matched her dad's kid-like enthusiasm for gods, monsters, aliens, and superheroes. She's super creative, he says. She was a writer. She was at Sarah Lawrence to be a writer. Snyder swipes through his phone to show off a selfie of Autumn that she took in the Letterman jacket worn by Ray Fisher's character in Justice League, a football star horrendously wounded in a car accident and rebuilt by his scientist father into the half robot warrior cyborg. Had been to therapy and in meds, but the depression remained brutal. She was always wondering about her worth. What is my worth? What am I supposed to do? What am I about? Snyder stumbles on his words, his eyes glassy. The conversation was like, of course you're amazing. What do you mean you're worth? You're worth more than anything in the world. And she would just be like, yeah. Snyder says Autumn used writing to vent her pain, to channel it to words that might contain it or explain it. She adored sci-fi. Her main characters are always in this battle with things from other dimensions that no one can see. But it's a serious war, and that war was happening to her every day. I think so many people are in that battle, and they smile and nod at you. The fact that the studio had lost faith in Snyder's ability to make Justice League seemed mundane and pointless after Autumn's death. It's such a lightning strike in the center of this whole saga, says Snyder. In a lot of ways, it has informed everything we've done since. The Snyders tried to keep going for 2 months after Autumn's death, finding solace in finishing Justice League, but by then the situation with Warner Brothers had imploded. The official story was that the Snyders were voluntarily leaving the movie due to their family tragedy and that Zack Snyder had handpicked Whedon to complete the movie he planned. Only half of that was true. Christian, as someone who is very passionate about mental health, about suicide, and I share that with you, but I love your voice on this issue. I want you to dig deep and talk to us about hearing this story.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to dig deep on some of the other areas, there's one part that I really wanted to zero in on in that part of the article, where he was talking about Autumn being in therapy and medications, the depression remained brutal, asking questions about what you're worth, what are you about, stuff like that. This disease, and you guys are, and myself included, have been raising money for suicide prevention and everything. This is something that never goes away. It does not disappear. Most of the time, medication doesn't really make it disappear. It helps you to manage it. I am currently not on medication. I'm very happy about that, but this does not go away, ever. I wake up many mornings thinking about different ways to kill myself. I go to sleep many nights thinking about different ways to kill myself. It is in my brain all the time. It affects everything I do, my relationships, the people I talk with, my self-worth, everything. And his poor daughter had to deal with that, and he watched it, and his wife watched it, and they have a huge family. So they probably all felt it. And to know that she was fighting that, and that inspired him as well in many different ways, is powerful stuff, man. It's really, really powerful stuff. And it affects everything that you hear about the rest of this project being ripped from him and torn from him and everything like that. If there's one piece I'll leave you with before I shut up, is that remember This is not a young person's disease, an old person disease. It's not something that people get when they're teenagers and all of a sudden they grow out of it. And I've heard people turn around and be like, oh, just be happy. Just smile. Get the fuck out. It doesn't work like that. If you don't think I tried to just be happy? Like, of course I do. And it doesn't work like that. And it is painful to read that she was not able to overcome it. And it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. Yeah, you nailed it. It's just it's heart wrenching to read, and these are the parts of this article that I think are really well done. And just
Lupe, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like everybody, and then I'll stop. Everybody gets themselves. I've watched the fandom online, and not only the fandom, but like the antis. I've watched them go back and forth. They're arguing about the toxicity and blah 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 blah. It was actually these pieces of the article that got me fired up. Sorry. I'll
yeah,
stop.
no. Go ahead. Yeah. These parts of the article, I really wish that the journalist, had been more tactful with his story and really focused on this. I think that these parts are beautiful, and I really feel for, like, I can't even imagine what the Snyders are going through as a family, because that's the thing about the whole tragedy is that as an individual and as a person has been lost to this world, but the tragedy affects the family as well, because I can't imagine them thinking like, what could we have done differently? How could we have helped her? What could we have said? That is something that I'm sure would haunt them for a long time. Although we know that, for people who deal with depression, that even people who deal with depression, they know that they're dealing with depression. Like,
yeah.
I suffer from depression. You're dealing with depression, but you can't stop it. You can't help it. It's just, so it's really heartbreaking. So thank you for sharing those words with us. So the next section.
Hold up, I got something to say about this though, real quick.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. We're managing time. We're managing time.
I know. But I'm sorry, but I just want to say a couple of things. This part of the article hit me pretty hard. And I'm gonna be honest, it's because I saw a lot of the things that I've been going through for a long time written here. I just didn't, I didn't really know how to connect with that. I wasn't conscious of it. Let's put it that way. One of the reasons why I've been away was because I did catch COVID back in November, and it pulled me down into a really bad place mentally that it took me a while to get out of. Physically, I was fine, but the place that I went to was hard to come back from. And during the time since, I have been paying much closer attention to my mental health, and I've seen that. And I've learned that, yes, I do suffer from mild anxiety and depression, and especially that part where she's talking about her worth, that really affected me, because yeah, that's what goes through your mind, and I could really relate to that. And like both of you guys said, this is what this article should have been about. All that, like Christian says that people were going back and forth about the toxicity. I blame the writer for that, because the writer made a choice. They made a choice to highlight this toxicity, which drove the conversation in a way that it should not have gone in. And again, that's Vanity Fair's fault, and they should have been more sensitive, as Zupe's been saying, not only to the Snyders and what they went through, but to us as well, and to how this piece would have been, talked about in the days and weeks to come.
Absolutely. Like I think, and that's something that we need to start addressing in these conversations, because I see a lot of people like blaming fans. Oh, fans are acting this way, but you got to think what's instigating these things, because the conversation wasn't just about toxicity. Basically, when people talked about it, people have talked about the stuff with the Nolans, things that we're talking about. People have talked about the toxicity part of it. People have talked about the movie part of it, and also talked about the Autumn part of it. So people have talked about all the parts of it. So when you're writing an article like this, you have to be aware that everything you put into this gumbo is going to affect it. And the toxicity part of it is a turd. So why are you throwing a turd into the gumbo? Like nobody has a piece of pie and it's like, oh, there's just a little turd in it. Don't worry, don't mind that little turd in the pie. It's perfectly fine. Something so small like that can ruin the whole thing, and it's just
now I got a mental image. That is nasty.
hey.
It's
But
nasty.
it's the exact right analogy to this article. All right, so let's keep it moving. In 2010, he first began working on DC movies for Warner Brothers. Snyder was promoted as a visionary director, though critics sometimes differed. Sometimes, even his hits could be divisive. He emerged from music videos and commercials with the breakout remake Dawn of the Dead in 2004 and followed it up with the otherworldly, visually audacious Tale of Resistance 300, which became a box office behemoth in 2007. Given his choice of projects, Snyder picked Watchmen, the iconic graphic novel that scorned the classic tropes of superhero storytelling and explored the corrupting nature of power. His 2009 adaptation upended comic book expectations just as Hollywood was building new epic franchises. Snyder then made a pair of box office disappointments, a digitally animated adventure about warring owls called Legend of the Guardians, and the surreal and some would say sexist action movie Sucker Punch, before being called to take on a legend among legends, Superman. When it debuted in 2013, Man of Steel established Henry Cavill as an object of global thirst, just as 300 had done for Gerard Butler and his washboard abs. Snyder's twist was to present a conflicted Clark Kent, rather than the sunny alter ego played by Christopher Reeve. Snyder's Superman was willing to kill for what he thought was right, which many longtime fans of the character found reprehensible. And though he still saved the world, he never felt like he truly belonged in it. The studio had hoped for more than the $668 million it made at the box office, but Man of Steel fared well enough for Snyder to get another shot, this time bringing Ben Affleck into the universe as Bruce Wayne in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. The subtitle was a giveaway. This would be a prologue to Justice League, a superhero crossover event that some moviegoers had been pining for forever. So, Christian, I want you to talk on this section, and then the next section, which goes further. I think Manu expertise will be great on that. So, Christian, anything stick out to you, good or bad, from this journalist's account of events?
I'll keep it short. I don't know if it's good or bad. It just is. You and I have talked about this before. He's right. I mean, Snyder is divisive. Divisive does not mean bad. It just means, love or hate. You either take him to him or you don't. But did you guys get the feeling that these two passages, it was almost like he was hedging?
Yes.
He's visionary, but wait. Not all his movies make a lot of money.
Yep.
He did a really good job with this, but he didn't really do a good job with this. This is the Superman that we needed right now, but it didn't make a lot of money at the box office. Like, it was just there's a little bit of hedging in these two. Just call it what it is. He's a divisive filmmaker that's visionary. That's it.
Yeah. I personally, I think that, just in my opinion, Zack Snyder doesn't owe anyone access to his story.
I get you.
So if he wants to tell his story, it should be told by someone who understands his vision, understands who he is as a filmmaker, and wants to share that with the world. There have been enough hit pieces, let me put it that way, written on Zack Snyder to fill up an entire museum. We don't need anything more that's adding to that rhetoric. False rhetoric, I might say. Is he divisive? Absolutely, he's divisive.
Sure.
But for example, saying Sucker Punch is sexist, that is it's factually incorrect.
But again, some would say it's some would say
exactly.
Like, you got to point out that hedging. He's hedging, like Christian said. Like it's the perfect way of praising him without pissing off his haters,
right,
and hating on him without pissing off his fans. It's that's
yeah. You guys nailed it, because the truth is that, look, you might not like Sucker Punch for whatever reason, but the reason should not be based on infactual evidence. And it's infactual that it's sexist. Anyone who says it's sexist didn't understand what the movie was doing.
I
It's
also
just
have an issue with the portrayal of Clark Kent as a
absolutely. I know where you're
hero
going.
that was willing to kill. Like, come
Yeah.
on,
He
like
was
that's
not willing to kill.
again,
He
that's
was
not what
forced.
happened. Like,
That's not
Yeah,
how it went down. And
that's
that
not how it went
sentence
down.
was only to make sure that they stuck in there. Longtime fans had a problem with blah 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 blah. That particular passage was in there only to point out that
yeah,
there was a whole fan base that didn't like it. That's
yep,
it. It's the
yeah.
only reason he did it.
And
It's the same. It's the same thing as earlier with the some were horrifically toxic. It's all. It's very smartly done. It's really well worked out within the piece. You got to give it to
yeah,
him.
but you have to be hip to these things, understand the language, the
Yeah.
codes of the bloggers, which we have deciphered and which we are deciphering for you today.
Yeah. Hey
All
man, I
right.
took English 101 like a few years back. I still remember how this works. Like it's not that deep, but it's
Sure, like
about wanting to see it, being able to read between the lines. And again, we did it, but most people won't. So
yeah,
that
because they don't understand the narratives and they don't understand what's going on. Like this is someone who's so ignorant about who Zack Snyder is as a creator. I'm very surprised that Zack Snyder gave him this access, and I know why. Zack Snyder, he's actually the reporter that saw Batman v Superman first before every other reporter.
oh, I didn't know that.
Interesting.
Yes,
Interesting. All right.
yeah. So in 2016, right? Do you guys remember someone saw Batman v Superman and
Yeah.
said some? It's Anthony Bresnikan.
Hmm.
Oh, when he said that there's a moment between the two
Yes.
heroes that's gonna touch the fans of yeah.
Yes.
I remember that. I remember
Yes.
that. And that
It is
moment
Anthony
was
Bresnikan. I
and
always
that
remember
moment
that name.
and I always thought the moment was the Martha won't die tonight moment. I thought that
Yeah.
yeah,
It,
I always thought like just suppose that that's what it was, but
it,
that
it
makes
might it might even have been the Martha moment, because the thing about the Martha moment that I always say is that the Martha moment is not a big deal at all. I assure you. It's just a viral moment. People were looking for something to hate. They threw like Christian says, when people throw shit on the wall and see what sticks, guess what stuck? Martha.
Martha.
Martha was funny enough, easy enough for people to hate. The amount of shit that was thrown on the wall to see if it stuck in terms of hating it, and people kept on debunking, was a
yeah.
lot. But
And
Martha,
don't forget that
was,
so much so that it ended up in Endgame. Like this,
yeah, yeah,
Bucky's
yeah. Don't
still
forget that
alive.
there's a Martha moment in Civil War as well. You know,
Hey,
I mean,
your friend, your Bucky.
yeah, yeah. Like we've been at this for a while, so we know the game. And Anthony Bresnikan, as I recall, when Batman v Superman came out and started getting a lot of hate, he basically, I think he made a tweet about, like, why are people hating this movie so much? Like, it's saying it's not nice, and then you never heard from him again on the issue.
And again, you can kind of see that in this piece because he seems to me like someone that wants to like Zack's work, but is still conscious of the just the general sentiment around him. So
Yes,
again, he's pulling a Warner Brothers here, and he's pussyfooting in certain sections, and
absolutely.
it's incredibly frustrating. But I understand because I think
I
that in
don't.
order to pull in those quote unquote haters, you have to kind of give them a little something in order to feel like they're not crazy. You know, it's kind of like what they say, that whole Mary Poppins thing. Like, you gotta, a little bit of sugar makes the medicine easier to go down.
Make the medicine go down.
That's basically what's going on here. It's like, yeah. You guys have all these issues with Snyder, and you know what? They may be valid, but can we stop acting like this dude is a terrorist? Like, I think that that's really what he wanted to get to at the end of the piece.
Personally, I think that he's a lot of the bloggers, they feel pressure from their peers because their
Yes.
peers are their friends. And I think he's one of those people who just isn't able to stand firmly and strongly in his affinity for Zack Snyder. He seems like someone who has been twisted and turned by what he's heard from that group think pressure. That's what it seems like to me.
I wouldn't go that far. I really
I
think that
would.
he's okay. Well, all right. Well, that's you, dog.
Yeah, I would, because I mean, when we speak more and more, there's
Yeah.
more evidence in this
Yeah,
article.
you're right. So when you think about let's just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So Snyder wasn't just making big budget tempos. He'd become the architect of the entire DC cinematic universe, the DCEU, and his casting choices continue to resonate to this day. He chose Gal Gadot to play Wonder Woman in BVS and produced Patty Jenkins' standalone movie about the Amazonian princess. I remember Gal saying to me, Zach, I was going to quit the business. I was ready to just move back to Tel Aviv and just have a life there. I was done with Hollywood. I was going to do this one more edition. Then she came in and I was like, that's my Wonder Woman. Now she's the whole world. As with Man of Steel, Snyder continued to challenge expectations and norms, which sometimes led to pushback from the studio and originalist fans. Aquaman, for instance, has always looked waspy in the comics. In casting the role for BVS, Snyder decides to forgo the blonde hair and blue eyes of the comic book hero in favor of the long, dark locks and smoky gaze of Momoa, who had come in to audition for Bruce Wayne. He's a Pacific Islander. There's a connection to the sea. What if he's Aquaman? He remembers thinking. Everyone was like, "You're insane. That's not a thing." Um, it became part of the pattern. The studio gave Zack Snyder the power to go anywhere he chose with his most valuable character. He always went somewhere other than what they wanted, the director says. Still, to his credit, all the recent his films have used Snyder's universe as a foundation. Even Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey would take place in his version of Gotham City. The upcoming Flash film will connect all the disparate DC films by ricocheting through multiple universes, with Michael Keaton's Batman appearing alongside Affleck's. So that's a good place to sort of have a break. It doesn't say too much, but it's just talking about who Zack is as a creator, how he goes against the grain, which is something that his fans love, because comic books and comic book movies are quite conservative, and I don't mean that politically. I mean that literally in terms of how they evolve, in terms of how they treat their characters, and none more so than DC and characters like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. These are characters that have been largely unchanged for decades upon decades. But Zack Snyder is someone who his way of thinking is to challenge long held notions and deconstruct things, and push the boundaries and bring new ideas. And I think if you're someone who's adventurous in that way, you will gravitate to his work. But if you're someone who wants your apple pie baked with the same recipe every single day, you will probably have your feathers rustled by what he thinks. So the next.
Hold on. I
go
want to
ahead.
add two things before we go. First off, when the fuck did Wonder Woman become a standalone movie? I don't know when that happened, but okay, great. And secondly, Momoa as Bruce Wayne is kind of like a crazy idea, but I've kind of had like a hard time not thinking about it.
It, I,
And it, I don't know if it could have worked or not. I just think it's pretty cool.
okay. Now, I don't think it would have worked, but hey, I guess that's why he didn't get the audition, right? It was just an audition, right? And then you see
I
what
mean,
happened.
he went for the Bruce Wayne audition, and Zach was like,
Yeah,
"You're my
and Zack
Aquaman."
was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I think Aquaman will work. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I'm just
kind of
saying,
like
like, I love the idea that he went to like that. He was like part of the
part
process as
of it.
well.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
shows. Yeah, I think it's very in line.
yeah. It's like
From
this whole
France for
idea of
Zach.
thinking outside the box. I mean,
Yeah,
you know.
and then in terms of the Wonder Woman coming, I'm glad you picked up on that, because I kind of didn't. But I remember when Wonder Woman came out, there was this narrative by bloggers and this narrative by the studio as well, that it was a standalone movie that had nothing to do with Batman v Superman. And the reason why was because they were trying to distance themselves from Batman v Superman. But that movie is so connected to Batman v Superman, it's not even a joke. As a matter of fact, if that movie was better cohesively from top to bottom, and it isn't, that movie would be part of your watch through to get to Justice League.
Yeah. And Diana's team and Wonder Woman is actually the team that was meant to transport the mother box that changed Cyborg to the States.
Just and obviously, we have the whole thing of the picture, and you know
Hmm?
Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne being like it's not standalone. It's very,
It's
very, very much in line. Now, Wonder Woman 84 is standalone.
oh hell yeah, it stands all by itself.
It's, it's doing its own thing in 1984. Really standalone, and nobody's talking much about it, so it's literally standing alone. All right, so our next section. Harsh reviews for Batman v Superman demolished Warner Brothers' confidence in Snyder. Even the director's champions, like production head Greg Silverman, were worried. When BVS came out, we did get a negative reaction from fans. It was disheartening for a lot of us, says Silverman, now the founder and head of independent content company Stampede Ventures. Zack had made these movies like 300 that were such crowd pleasers, and that was our job, to make crowd pleasers. And here we have made a movie together, and it didn't really please the audience. Marvel Studios movies, whose success exerted so much pressure on the DC team, hit on a formula that mirrored their comic book roots, telling stories about relatable, everyday people grappling with sudden, phenomenal powers. Snyder's DC movies approached its superheroes from the opposite direction, depicting gods and immortals who were at ease wielding cosmic strength but strained to be human and connect to the ordinary world. The director envisioned this as operatic, tragic, and perhaps a more challenging type of comic book storytelling, but Warner Brothers feared it made his heroes gloomy, their abilities a curse. Christian, this is your spot to shine. What do you think of this whole section as a comic book, lore addict and fanatic, and also, we do have to take into consideration, the worries of studio executives.
Yeah, I think those are two very specific things. And I think, number one, it's not Snyder's DC universe. Like we read comic books. That's DC. First of all, DC, Marvel, they've been stealing from one another forever. So that's just been happening for a long time. So take that out for a second. But DC's characters have always been godlike, mythological, going back to almost, Scandinavian, Rome, Greek mythology, all of that stuff. That's their characters. And Marvel's characters have been, okay, a teenager wakes up, his mutant powers suddenly evolve, and he realizes that he can punch a hole through a wall with his eyeballs, and things like that. That's just the difference. It's not the MCU didn't create that and Snyder didn't create that. That's fundamentally who they are. So I don't know exactly where they were going in that particular passage, but Snyder took his take on it. And if they want to blame him for that, that's ridiculous. But that's a side piece. The other part to it is, and Manu and I have talked about this before, this is not a knock on Zack. If you are trying to recreate an MCU, why the hell did you pick him? Like, that's not the guy.
It's not.
But that doesn't mean that. No, but you know what I'm saying. Now you want to recreate an MCU. You want to have, all this stuff is going to be happening. You want your 4 quadrant. You want blah 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 blah. That's not the guy. And then when it doesn't happen, you say this guy fucked up and he dicked us. Like that doesn't. I'm sorry, but that doesn't compute. And
real quick. Even the article mentions in 2009, everybody in the industry was going left. He went and made Watchmen.
Right.
Like that's the dude you're dealing with. That's the guy who's like, here, you can make whatever movie you want. You know what? Give me fucking Watchmen. That's Zack Snyder.
And you know what, Manu? Fox, and Fox made some shit X-Men movies, but the reality was they stuck with whatever they were. Their continuity is crap. They don't care. They were just like, we're doing what we're gonna do. And then because of that, you got movies like Logan, right?
Yep.
So
you got movies like Days of Future Past, and like what was it? The first.
Well, X2 is fantastic. First Class is
X1,
fantastic.
yeah, First Class. So
Days
like,
that's what I mean. Like I don't understand. Like, and
y'all gonna bring me back to talk about First Class for real?
Debutante.
the thing with this, I understand what Greg Silverman is saying, but one thing, yeah, oh no, he's dope. One thing that we knew, and one reason, one thing that you see about this fandom, and it's taken us a journey to get to this point. And one thing, I used to have conversations with Larry Fong a lot, and one thing that I always used to tell him, and he began to see it before people like Zack saw it, and before the studio is now seeing it, is that, and Christian, you can attest to this, is that no reasonable, rational DCEU fan is going to say, we're as much as Marvel fans. Hell no, we're not. It's
Oh,
not even close.
oh,
However, we are enough to sustain a cinematic universe and have it
oh,
making a
absolutely.
lot of money. Okay? It might not make Marvel money, but you will make a profit. Your movies will do well in perpetuity. And the problem in the time of the BVS wars, and Manu remembers, is that the deluge of hate from critics, and it just snowballed. There was this negativity that was just so toxic and so self-perpetuating, and it was this feed it was this feedback loop in which it was a frenzy because basically everything negative DC was making a lot of money for reporters.
Yeah.
Anyone who was on YouTube, had a blog, was a journalist, if they made an article bashing Zack Snyder, bashing the DCEU, Marvel fans will hoard towards it, give it a
Hate
lot of views,
sells.
a lot of clicks, say, oh yes, DC is terrible, sucks, they can't get it right. But also DC fans at that point would hoard towards it and, in their attempts to, fight and, fight for DC, they'd give it clicks, they'd throw gasoline on the fire, So
Oh yeah.
basically, all that the studio was getting was they were seeing all these articles, just and things, and DC sucks, it's terrible. Batman Superman is the worst movie. People were saying Batman Superman is one of the worst movies ever made.
Hate sells,
It,
man.
it was on lists for worst movie of the year. That's how crazy and frenzied, worked up into a frenzy, and just delusional people had become about this thing. So the studio could not see their fans through all that noise. That's basically what he's saying here. Negative, because later on we see, like, in a Snyder Con at the Arts Academy in Pasadena, Zack Snyder said something, and I was like, it's broken through to him. He said, a vocal minority. And that's the fact. I will always maintain, if you look at a movie that made like 900 million and look at the fervor for the Snyder Cut, the people who did not like BVS and Zack's dark universe, it's a very vocal, very powerful, but a minority. Fight me on this. There's
You know
only
what, Lupe?
300. Go ahead.
You raise a good point, because in what universe is 660 some odd $million for Man of Steel, 890 million for BVS a failure? Like, what the fuck? Like, that's not, I'm sorry, that's not a failure. When the MCU was starting their franchise, they were making $300 million a pop on their movies. Captain America,
Right.
The First Avenger is a great movie. It made $300 million or whatever.
Fact.
Iron Man
that's
was the standout with 500 mil,
right.
but they didn't really make any money, like the real billion, until the Avengers came out and that was what their fifth or sixth movie,
Fifth or sixth movie. Yeah.
fifth or sixth
Yeah.
movie. So I never really got that back then. I still don't get it now.
It was just
And
narratives.
but it
because
was
people
narratives,
always
but I
say, oh,
also there was
no,
like
no,
you
just
said,
to
you
interject,
mentioned.
this
Sorry,
this is going to furnish your point. It's just that, like you were saying, Avengers being 5 movies. Do you know how many movies Justice League was into the DCEU?
the third or the fourth, because of
It
Wonder
was the
Woman.
fourth, right?
Fourth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even Wonder Woman made 800 mil.
Actually, no.
So.
Actually, it was the fifth. Actually, it was the fifth. Because Man of Steel.
Oh, Suicide Squad. I always forget Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I always forget that too.
But if you take Justice League out and just say, okay, just movies introducing your titulars heroes, it was the fourth. So are people trying to tell me that just one more movie would have made that big a difference? Yes, okay, you guys took a year. Now they took their time. Like, come on, it's all lies and narrative. But Manu, continue. I just wanted to stress that.
I was just gonna add, like, there was this unbelievable push to silence the voices of those who were fans of Snyder and his universe. I mean, we're gonna get into it later on with the whole, like, the toxic of the fandom and keeping out the access media's faults in this. But a lot of the times, whenever Snyder fans came about, they were called. People said they were Russian bots. That again just recently happened again, but the first time it took place was back in 2016 and 17. That Snyder fans were just Russian bots on the internet. That there couldn't be real, actual people that liked this movie. Like they just that notion that it might be possible had to be like a joke. Either that, or you had to be like a crazy person.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're not a bot, Manu?
Or a toxic person.
Look, bro. Some mornings I wake up and I'm not sure.
Period. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move it along. We've got a lot to talk about. There's more where that came from. All right. So Diane Nelson, who was president of DCEU, DC Entertainment at that time, not just DC Entertainment, so covering like comics, video games, everything DC, says she appreciated that Snyder was more into deconstructing the familiar than just recapitulating it. Zack is a masterful visual storyteller who goes deep on individual characters, she says. For some people, that's amazing, and for other people, that becomes the problem because they have fixed opinions about who these DC characters are and are not. In 2016, as principal photography got underway on Justice League in the UK, rumors percolated that Snyder had been fired from the film. That did not happen. If you guys remember, the first pick he had with Jason Momoa on the Justice League set, where Jason Momoa captioned like deep in it, that was in response to these rumors that kind of bothered Zack, and it was like it was possible. But Warner Brothers then CEO Kevin Tsujihara did assign watchdogs in the form of former DC Entertainment CEO.
Damn, you couldn't even say that with a straight face. It's just his name, Lupe. It's just his name.
Sparks.
Yeah. The name that cannot be said, Jeff
Damn,
Johns.
you reached Voldemort status?
And Warner Brothers co-production head John Berg, the editor,
Dark Lord.
At least one of them had to be on set every day. Berg, who's now production president at Stampede, recalls that duty as a low point. It was really tricky and not a position that I loved, to be honest, he says. I tried to be forthright about what I thought creatively. My job was to try to mediate between a creator whose vision is instinctually dark and a studio that perceived, rightly or wrongly, that the fans wanted something lighter. I was respectful of the director and didn't pursue things that were coming at me from a corporate side that I thought weren't in line with what would make the best movie. Snyder knew why Johns and Berg were on set. You could say babysit, he says. Many filmmakers would have bristled at the intrusion, but he was gracious. It didn't bother me too much because they weren't that threatening. I just felt the ideas they did have, where they were trying to inject humor and stuff, it wasn't anything that was too outrageous. So guys, this is one of like the most illuminating sections into like the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people like don't know. Some of it we speculated on, some of it we got some confirmation here and there, but this is like official, like in a trade and from the mouth of the horse. So guys, feel free to dive deep in this. Let's start with Manu. What from this sticks out to you?
Well, first off, there's a whole lot of malarkey in there, but that's all good. I think it's the part that jumped out was the fact that John Berg is actually with Greg Silverman over at Stampede.
Yes, is that right?
Yeah.
I did too. It shows you how incestuous Hollywood is and how they look out for themselves.
Yeah, it's just I just found that interesting. But besides that, like I don't know, like. It's just weird to hear Diane Nelson say this when that Bleeding Cool article from 2017 is still circulating, and she was saying very different things back then. Mm-hmm. We knew that Johns was on set. We knew that this is when he really started to get his hooks into things. But again, what I really love about this piece is like Snyder is doing the winner thing here. Like he's very humble, he's very gracious in his victory, because he could have shot down those people, but even the way he speaks, in a way, he's still conveying a sense of respect towards them that he has no need to do so.
Yeah.
So that's the part of this that sticks out to me the most. Aside from that, like. I don't know, Diane Nelson stuff about Zack, that falls on my deaf ears because you and I think we see differently about this. I think you're far more, maybe forgiving is the wrong word. Maybe understanding
it's the right word.
Yeah.
It's the right word. I see a character arc. I am quite aware of things going on, and I know that this whole thing, as I said, for a lot of these executives, is a mea culpa, because with Diane Nelson, there's such an arc and such a story there. But I believe that everyone, as I've said with Jeff Johns and with Joss Whedon, if they came out and they expressed some sort of regret
Remorse.
and contrition or remorse for what they've done, I would not be on their necks like I am. But I've said until they do, I will forever be. It's fuck Jeff Johns and fuck Whedon's and fuck Joss Whedon on my side and all my homies who think the same thing. Me and
Yeah.
my family, my extended family, and
I respect
even my
that. I
future
just
generations until if they come on, they're a bit contrite and at
I get
least
that. I
just some
respect that.
voice. Yeah, because
I
everybody should be afforded some way to redeem themselves.
I completely agree.
You know.
I just still feel like this is the kind of support that Zach needed back in
Oh,
2017.
absolutely.
But she made a choice.
Yeah,
She
and it's
chose.
it's clear that she's regretted that choice.
Yeah,
It's very clear,
yeah.
very
That,
clear. Which is people should be allowed to. No,
to,
I'm not advocating for people to forgive or anything. Like you don't have to. Like honestly, I
no, no,
would
no.
never
I know
ask.
that. That's
Yeah,
that's why it was like you're more forgiving
yeah.
than
I would
yeah.
never. Personally, I would never ask anyone to like forgive her or anything like that. That's on you as an individual. She's done enough not to deserve it. And when we say forgive, it's not, God forgives. We don't. Trust is the word. So if people choose not to trust her, like, I don't know, it falls on deaf ears, as you say, that's a 100% valid reaction. Because in case people don't know, Diane Nelson teamed up with Jeff Johns. But I think this is my read. If you notice in this article, there is just a mention of Jeff Johns. He's never. They don't even say it. They sought comments. Joss Whedon, they say they sought comments. Jeff Johns, they didn't even, because I'm telling you, Jeff Johns is next level. I've never seen, and I'll always say this for context for people. I always have had conversations with people like Clay Enos, Larry Fong, Zack Snyder himself, people who've worked with Zack Snyder, like actors and stuff like that. I've had detailed conversations with like Larry Fong and Clay Enos in DMs, Zack Snyder in DMs. Whenever I mention haters, I'm talking about people that I detest, like Devin Faraci and Jermaine Lucier and Collider, and they're always as gracious as you see Snyder here. Maybe they might throw a joke once in a while or whatever, oh, like yeah, like let them keep hating or whatever, or they'll just flex like, oh, we don't care, that sort of thing. But when I mentioned Jeff Johns, it's like when you see like a cute little person turn into like a frothing werewolf. That was when I knew. I was like, there is something different about this guy. And Grace Randolph has gone on record saying that his behavior is borderline sociopathic. Borderline. Like the guy is no joke. And I think that Diane Nelson, she's a these people in Hollywood, they're very ambitious, because we're talking about people coming into generational wealth. Like when you get in these positions, you're like Kevin Feige's position. Like these are this is not a joke. So of course they're ambitious to get to those positions. And I think Dan Nelson teamed up with Jeff Johns to do that, to, become the head and have more clout and whatever. But even Jeff Johns's treachery was too much for her. Was like she I think it got to the point where she saw that this is something different that I can't be a part of. I don't know if he threw her under the bus or anything like that, but it's obvious that he flew too close to the sun and he fell back to earth, and she was like, "You're on your own, motherfucker, peace." And she's been throwing him under the bus since then. Like it's funny to see, and not like for me, it's just cool, seeing all these people sort of like walk back all the things that they did. And the reason why, and I'll keep on saying it, is because of the fandom. Like, make no mistake about it. and this is not like a pat on the back for me. I'm saying it to the fan. I'm congratulating the fandom, and I'm letting people know. And that's what I always said with getting the Snyder Cut. Forget even the Snyder Cut. The fact that Zack Snyder fans are so passionate, so organized, so numerous out there, it gives him power. And that to me, that's enough. That's enough. Okay, so let's move on to the next portion. We get these two really cool pictures. One of Amber Heard, Mara. She's a controversial figure. I know a lot of people don't like her. Me myself included, I must say, but I'm gonna keep it professional.
Dude, I
She's
wish I
doing
knew
a
nothing
movie.
about her because I just want to keep looking at her. I wish
Yeah,
I knew nothing
hey,
about her.
you know what? You know what? I'll tell you. She's good at playing that femme fatale role. She's a real life femme fatale. Real like you're laughing. Like people talk about, oh, they want a woman to ruin them.
Oh boy,
She really takes that to heart.
Jesus!
It's actually like, did you guys hear the recordings of Johnny Depp telling her that she should ruin him and destroy him? That he wanted her to.
I did
But
not.
in a playful, in a playful sexual way. But you get what you ask for. Be careful what you wish
Jesus
for. It might
Christ.
just come true.
So that's what you're into, huh?
Hey, hey, hey.
Five years,
Hey,
5 years we've been in the trenches together, buddy.
hey, hey. All I can say is that she's a definition of I would risk it all. I don't have much to risk anyway, so I'm good. I'm good.
Crazy.
I'm
So
not a
she-
millionaire or nothing like that. But
until she
I can
takes
start from scratch easily. So
until she takes a Jeff Johns on your bed, dog.
she'll be, she'll be playing herself. Nigga, I just washed them sheets, man. It's all good. It comes out. I'm like,
Bro, you're not supposed to put it.
I'll just go to the store and be like, yeah, what detergent is the best for when your girlfriend shits in your bed?
My girlfriend's Amber Heard, bitch.
You know the best thing for her to do. You know the best thing for her to get. She needs to get an endorsement, like a commercial from like from like
Charmin,
yeah
Charmin Ultra.
for something like that, for Charmin, for something like that. It I'm telling you, it will be the best thing ever. Well,
X-Lax?
okay, okay, let's move on. Let's move on. All right.
It's-
So the next section goes into but Warner Brothers did nix some of his more sweeping notions for Justice League. So this part talks about how he was going to add a romance between Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne and Amy Adams' Lois Lane, who was mourning Superman's death in the previous film. So Christian, what do you think about this section? This is something that a lot of people, bristled at, talked about. Manu has been joking, and I swear, Manu, I'm going to choke you. Okay. All right. Well, let's start with Christian.
Poor choice of words. Poor choice of words, Lupe.
Christian, what do you think of this idea that Zack Snyder had for there to be a romance between Bruce Wayne and Lois Lane?
I don't know the joke behind it, whatever Manu's talking about, so I won't even go that direction because I don't exactly know what's going on there. But like, I saw a bunch of people on the internet blow up over this thing, get themselves all pissed off over it, like it's never happened. The fuck, man? Has anybody either watched a cartoon or read a comic in their entire life? Most people obviously haven't. They haven't. It would have been interesting. This is just me. I don't think I'm not sure I would have liked it because I don't know if it was going in that, like, it just would have been out of left field. But at the same time, people are hurting. There's obviously a lot of sadness there with Clark's supposed death, all of that. You fall into somebody's arms sometimes when that happens. And, there would have been a connection there. Bruce feels so responsible for what happened. So why not? Why not play with it? I just think it's hysterical that these people are going ballistic. Like, you got to jump on every little thing. Jesus.
Damn.
Give it a shot. You never know. God. Yeah, chill
right.
out.
Manu, the stage is yours.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier before. What I love about Zach is like he's ready to go to those places, and I really feel like this is going to that place. Like, I would have loved to see this happen, and I do wonder if this is the scary idea that Zach talked about at SnyderCon a couple of years back. Just the idea of Bruce Wayne falling in love, this Bruce Wayne
Mm-hmm.
falling in love with this Lois Lane. Uh, when you think about the journey that they both have been on concerning the Superman, I think that could have been a really powerful piece of cinema, down to the point of Bruce just admitting defeat and it's like, whatever, we gotta bring this dude back, and if this dude come back, I ain't got no shot with Lois, and
Oh my
still
God.
being
Yeah.
like, I have to do this. And again, it's that's like, that's what I love about Snyder, is his point of view about being a hero. It's sacrifice, it's giving up the things that you love the most because something is the right thing. And it's one thing to, like, give like a long speech about it, but it's another thing to like really live it and to really delve and dive into those consequences. And that's one of the things that made the Dark Knight trilogy so powerful, is that we witnessed Bruce's sacrifices and what it did to him. And I feel like we in BVS, again, there's a lot going on in that movie, but we can still feel the pain, the loneliness, and the emptiness within Batman. And the thought that he opened up his heart towards Lois Lane, and that he saw that maybe there was a little bit of hope at the end of the tunnel, that maybe he could get out of that cave.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's like, I gotta go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that, again, that's Batman, like running into a falling building as people are running away from it. That's
Mm-hmm.
fucking Batman, and I would have loved to fucking see that on screen.
Yeah. I do like your dramatic analysis and interpretation of that plot line. It holds very true, but I still don't think I would have liked it. I just don't, because personally, like, this Batman for me just seems,
You just don't like my
I
jokes.
I really dislike the joke. But at the same time, but on a more serious note, this Batman for me works very well as someone who's emotionally closed off and emotionally damaged to the point where him falling for someone is just not a possibility. I just don't really like that line, and then the complication of making Lois Lane like an object of affection. I don't really like that either. This is like one thing about me, and with Zack Snyder, is that I'm not the type of person who's like, oh, you know what, you shouldn't do this, blah blah. He should do whatever he wants. That's part of what this whole Snyder Cut campaign has been about, and I will take it as the art that it is and analyze it on its own terms. But it's something that I'm okay with it not happen. Where I actually would really like the reverberations is that this definitely connects to the nightmare future, where Superman says, "She was my world, and you took her from me." This now makes that make sense, because I was always wondering that choice of that, like, why would he say, is it because he thinks that Darkseid killed her, but he didn't take her, or was it that he rescued her? And but now we're seeing that it was a situation where Lois Lane, maybe he thought that Lois Lane, maybe he noticed something going on between them, and that began to make him go off the deep end and be jealous and doubt things and act strange. And then Darkseid played into that, used that to to drive the final nail into the coffin of the good person that he was. And he's just like, you know what, none of these people are worth it. Like, humans are just the worst. So that's the only part where I would have liked that. That's where it would have made a lot of sense to me. But I feel it's unnecessary. But it also has to do with having a fixed conception of who these characters are. You know, because I've always just seen like Lois Lane and Superman. Like, even in comics and stuff, like when Batman, you come, like, I don't like Batman. I just don't like Bruce Wayne. That effing motherfucker.
Yeah, that's because you're a Superman fan, and he took you to task. He beat you up. He threw you down the fucking stairs. You know, he was about to kill you, but then, shit happened. I'm just
like
saying.
Wow.
yeah, let's yeah
Wow.
let's not get carried away, okay?
This
Like
dude,
because
this dude
after all
brought the
that,
toilet sick
that's
on your
why
head, dog.
that's why Zach was killed in the nightmare vision, like easily, like
Yeah, that didn't happen
easily,
though.
easily.
That didn't happen though.
That's why I got real scared.
You,
All right, let's move on. So the studio nixed that, and then let's go on to this chapter that says that reports that Snyder himself asked Whedon for help were false. Johns, one of the studio's appointed babysitters, had been planning a Batgirl movie with Whedon, and Snyder and the others say Johns recruited him to do rewrites for Justice League. Johns' representatives did not respond to requests for comment. So actually, they did requests coming from Jeff Johns. My apologies on that. So once again, Snyder was gracious and even hopeful. I thought maybe he could write some cool scenes. I thought it would be fun. Soon it became clear that WB was giving Whedon more and more power. He would not just advise during reshoots, but also do some directing himself. Snyder says he only had one conversation with Whedon about the studio's notes. Reeling from Autumn's death and finding anguish in their work rather than relief, Zack and Deborah quit. We just lost the will to fight. That fight in a lot of ways, says Zack. All of us, the whole family, were just so broken by losing Autumn that having these conversations in the middle of it really became, it was like, really? Frankly, I think we did the right thing because it would have been either incredibly belligerent or we just rolled over. One by one, he called members of his cast and crew. I remember I was in the movie theater coincidentally enough, Reed Fisher said on the set of Snyder's reshoots last fall. I was walking to the AMC right in Times Square, and I got the call from Zack that he was saying he had to deal with stuff with the family and he was having to step away. I had a trillion questions. My heart sank. So this section I think is like really important in terms of like background and illuminates a lot of things that we as a fandom have been trying to tell people about the situation with Zack Snyder and this whole thing. People saying that Zack Snyder wasn't fired, he left voluntarily. He did not leave voluntarily. If he had his way and he was catered to, and people around him had treated him with the due respect of a filmmaker of his ranking, tenure, and status, and the consideration for his mental health and mental well-being during such a horrific family tragedy, Zack Snyder would have stayed on and completed the movie. It could have been therapeutic for him. Instead, as we see, one person is thrown under the bus here, and it's Jeff Johns. He was railroaded, usurped, undermined, pretty much disrespected and pushed out. I always tell people like this is the definition of pushing someone out. When someone's at a job or doing something and you can't fire them, what you do is you make things so uncomfortable for them, so horrific for them that they end up saying, you know what, I quit. That's how you force people out. And that's exactly what Jeff Johns did. And I actually believe that Jeff Johns never wanted Zack Snyder there in the first place. It looks like, because, I mean, when you look at the after effects of, after Snyder left, they just completely just trashed everything he did and just went ham. No respect for his vision before, where he was going, his sensibilities as a filmmaker. It was clear that they were like, thank God he's gone. Now let's just, completely go ham. I'm sure they never ever called him to say, oh, you know what, this is progress. We're doing this. Will you be okay if we did this? We're taking out this and putting in that. What do you think? Just to, it's your movie. Let's, see your vision to the end. So a lot of people who tried to wash away Jeff Johns' culpability in this, and also John Berg, because John Berg still remains, and also Toby Emmerich and all the people involved. This is proof of what happened, how cruel and disrespectful and unkind and insensitive they were at such a tender. Like the whole thing just it makes my skin crawl. and is one of the reasons why the Snyder Cut faithful have been so passionate because of the knowledge of stuff like this. This is one of the elements because we're like, no, this is just wrong. You just don't do this to people, and so we fought for him. You know. So what do you guys think of this section? Do you have anything to add? Anything different to say other than what I've said?
Um, no, I mean, like, there's nothing really major. I think it's important that, like you said a couple of minutes before in one of our previous sections, Vanity Fair is, look, it's a big time publication. It's one of the big trades out there, and talking about what a lot of people have known for a long time, reports that Snyder himself asked Whedon for help are false, blah, blah, blah. It's very important for that to be acknowledged and that it's out there and that it's come from a publication like that. I think the piece in there that hits me the hardest is the sentence where, reeling from Autumn's death, finding anguish in their work other than relief, Zack and Deborah quit. And it backs up everything that you just said. That sentence is very painful. And proves, I think, he didn't just quit to quit. It's almost basically he was forced out, and quitting was like cathartic. I mean, that's like the only thing that he could have done. Like, that's the only thing that would give him any peace, because at that point, this was poisoning him more than anything else.
All right, let's move on to the next section, and we'll have Manu talk about his favorite director, Joss Whedon. So Whedon rewrote and reshot about 3/4 of Justice League, from what Snyder can gather. When fans ask him about details of the movie that bears his name, he usually has no idea what they're talking about. Worst of all, for WB, Whedon didn't exactly. Wow. Okay. What interesting choice of words. Whedon didn't exactly save the movie. When we got to see what Joss actually did, it was stupefying, says the studio executive who requested anonymity. The robber on the roof, so goofy and awful. The Russian family, so useless and pointless. Everyone knew it. It was so awkward because nobody wanted to admit what a piece of shit it was. Thank you, Vanity Fair, for the explicit language. Really tastefully captured the essence. Justice League opened in November 2017 and cratered. They also talk about how Ray Fisher has publicly claimed Whedon was abusive on set and that Warner Brothers enabled his actions. They talk about Gal Gadot also filing complaints. Dan also talks about the fact that the cast were loyal to Zack, and this line really stuck with me. This is one of the worst things that one of my fears in life. She says it would have been a difficult environment for any new director to walk into. I have no doubt about that. But then how Joss chose to handle that is Joss's to live with. In the aftermath of Whedon's version, a new narrative arose in social media. Release the Snyder Cut. Snyder gradually began to encourage the movement, but it was hardly the first thing on his mind. So Manu, this section, what things really stick out to you? What's your commentary?
Well, first off, it's kind of glad to get the confirmation that he did rewrite and reshoot 3/4 of the movie. I think that just that being out there for the public to read, that makes our job a lot easier. We don't have to continue to tell people just how much Whedon did, because I feel that to this day, people still don't really understand or want to understand or want to accept how much they did during that time span in the summer of 2017. And to kind of get confirmation from this article that yes, they redid 2/3 of it, that makes me happy to read. And all the other stuff, again, it's stuff that most of us who are in this fandom do know. The treatment on set, and actually, just like you said, I really like what the quote here about "it's his to live with," and I think that really, again, it pushes forth what Joss did do over this period of time. And he is not my favorite director, by the way. I just want that to be out there. I just want it to be made clear.
What?
We were told something completely different.
I know.
Y'all are trying to slander my name. God damn. But no, I think that this section does a really good job of just stating facts, Because again, like we know these things, but not everybody does. So this is good on that end.
Hmm. All right. So continuing the narrative, we'll skip forward a little bit. Um, they talk about Army of the Dead, which we're all looking forward to. They say when Snyder left Warner Brothers, he took his laptop, which is emblazoned with a Justice League sticker on the hard drive, was the original, nearly 4-hour version. It was devoid of visual effects, music, and all the fine tuning that make a movie a movie. It was also in black and white. To him, it was a memento. He thought, we just show it to random people who stopped by, like our friends or whatever. Rather than fade away like a Michael Jordan jump shot, the demand, he didn't say a Michael Jordan jump shot, he's not that clever. The demand for the Snyder Cut gained momentum over the years. Groups paid to have single-engine planes fly and release the Snyder Cut banner around both the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank and the annual Comic-Con gathering in San Diego. Last year, fans pulled resources to buy a Times Square billboard. A noxious contingent of followers, though, didn't just advocate for the movie. They also used social media to attack people who were critical of Snyder or their cause. Maybe they hoped to silence dissenters, or maybe they were just being trolls. In any case, film journalists with negative takes reported like getting swarmed with insults, even threats. Unfortunately, I think a lot of online fandom and fandom culture is headed in this very toxic direction, says Kaylee Donaldson, who writes for Pajiba.com, whatever the hell that is.
I was about to say.
It is especially strong for Snyder Cut acolytes, she adds. Perhaps because they respond misguidedly to the director's tales of loner heroes in a hostile world. I don't get this from Birds of Prey fans or Shazam.
There aren't any.
Says, right on. Says Donald. I got a little bit from Joker fans. But nowhere near the same level. Nonetheless, she's looking forward to Snyder's movie. I think 300 is great fun. I think the first 10 movies of Watchmen are some of the best things any superhero. Just say you don't like the movie. I think the 10 minutes are good, but I don't like the rest of it. Even if she doesn't end up liking the Snyder Cut, she says, I would rather watch one person's chaos than the committee's snooze fest. Really, I wish she was saying this in 2017.
I wish you never said anything, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. Then he brings in the psychologist, Drea Letam. Yeah. A clinical psychologist who explores superhero archetypes on the Arkham Sessions podcast. Notes that fans get especially aggressive on social media when they feel they've been denied something. What I have observed is an enduring false sense of ownership, which can manifest as abuse, threats, and strong, intense reactions when a story doesn't go their way. She says, fighting for the unseen cut of the film became a cause, and some quarters of worst behavior metastasized. They're shouting, and people are listening to them. Even if it's negative comments, they get positive reinforcement to continue down their path. The trolls may have actually held back the movement, like looters in an otherwise peaceful demonstration. Snyder cringes at descriptions of the abusive tactics. I 100% think it's wrong. I don't think that anyone should be calling anyone anything. I've always tried to give people in the fandom attention who do good things. So there's this huge portion that's dedicated to, talking about toxic fans and trolls, and he brings in, a couple of experts, unbiased experts, scientists, since he brought in the experts and the scientists, it must be facts. So let's start with Christian, then we'll go to Manu, and then I'll conclude on this section. Christian, when you read this, what was your thoughts?
I'll hit on a couple things here. It's clear that they want the author has something to say about toxic fandoms. I don't know if this person is someone who's been attacked, has a story to tell, has PTSD. I have no idea if that's what it is. But whatever the case is, it seems like they have something that they want to say. Now, I don't pretend to know as much about Kaylee as you guys do, but I looked up her background and I went, holy shit. That's unbiased? Cool. All right, moving on. Because she's clearly not unbiased. I'm sorry. She's, all I had to do was take a look at some of her past comments and some of I was like, okay, well, that's not biased at all. That's whatever. And I didn't necessarily, I don't even know if I would want to go into what the clinical psychologist said, because that was just like, pseudoscience gobbledygook and kind of going crazy there. I think that the couple of quick things is that, we've talked about this before, Lupe. Toxicity, toxic is a word that we can throw around. I could say something really awful about you online. You jump in to defend me, and I'm like, bang, Lupe's toxic. Fuck him. He attacked me. It's very easy to do that, and it's very easy to pull the victim card out when that happens. The flip side to that, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I am neck deep in Star Wars fandom and a bunch of others. We do have to accept that there are toxic elements to all of our fandoms. And what we tend to do is look the other way when they're fighting on our side. I hated Roger Clemens before he became a Yankee, loved him when he was on the Yankees, and then hated him again when he left. That's just kind of how it goes. So we do have to accept that maybe sometimes we need those warriors. We sometimes need the guy that's going to throw a 98-mile-an-hour fastball at somebody's head, and we sometimes need that. But that doesn't necessarily, we just have to accept that they're there. It's that simple. And sometimes our fandoms, because I see it in Star Wars all the time, try to say, oh no, they don't exist, we don't do anything, we're nice to everybody. Bullshit. Just accept that they're there. And some people probably do take it too far, but they usually are the minority. Usually most people that are fighting for something are not the ones that take it too far. And there are always two sides to every story, because a lot of times when I read back on somebody like this, they said something that was out of line.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden turned around and were like, well, I was attacked. It does, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this particular section wanted to go a certain way, and they were trying to make a hit. And that's what they were trying to do. And why didn't they pick somebody else in the fandom that could have given them an alternate perspective? They didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm disappointed.
Mm-hmm. All right. Manu.
I'll say that just how the piece is constructed, there is like one paragraph about the good stuff that we done, and then there's like
a
three.
What you mean, a line?
Yeah, you're lucky if you got a paragraph. Like,
yeah, all right, you're right. Yeah, groups paid to have. Yeah, there's one sentence really. Yeah, there is one sentence, and then there's three paragraphs about how extreme and noxious and horrible we are and all this whatnot. Yeah. Okay, listen. This environment in and of itself is toxic. We've talked about this earlier in this pod. How many people have had their platforms grow due to hate, due to shitting on something, or saying that something sucks, or attacking somebody else? The media needs to be honest about itself. And this is the problem when you have access media reporting on access media. Mm-hmm. You're making it sound like these guys just woke up one day and got upset and just took it out on random people. No. And again, it's demeaning what these fans have done, but it's also misrepresenting what the access media has done. Because listen to this. Use social media attack people who were critical of Snyder or their cause. So when you hear that, what does it sound like? Like, oh, I didn't like his movie. I thought it was too dark. It needed a little bit of that Marvel pep. Not mentioning that these people were horrible, absolutely horrible to Zack. Like, I don't even care what they may say about me. But the way that they talked about Zack, all the things that were said and written, we don't have to go over it. We were there. We saw it. Mm. And the fact that that's not here is a problem for me. Because this piece, as far as I'm concerned, is incomplete without that part of it. That we were, in fact, reacting to something greater than ourselves, which is the toxicity that permeates social media and the internet all around. So the fact that we're constantly like looked at through a microscope and like, yeah, the Snyder Cut fandom is so toxic. The negativity is beyond anything that I've ever seen before.
It's the first time I heard you use that accent. That was okay.
I don't know where it came
that
from.
Was good.
How much bourbon have you had tonight?
Actually, none. But again, it does such a disingenuous job of actually talking about what took place and what happened. And I just and this part really gutted me because there's a lot of good parts in this article, but this part again, maybe it's because it's about, people that I have worked closely with, and like I'll say it, man, I love this fandom. Like, yeah. Some of y'all piss me off, sure, but there's so many great things about this fandom. Like, I remember one time, like a year ago, there was one member that was going through a very, very difficult time. And the fandom helped him, like legitimately helped him. I don't want to say more about it because I don't want to put him on blast, but like that's the kind of kindness and softness and like just effervescent love that I've seen take part within this community. But again, we never talk about that because you know what? Somebody said something mean to Christian Harloff or Jean-Marc Campea or this lady, Kaylee Donison for Pajiba.com. And again, it goes back to earlier. Like, it always seems like we don't matter.
Mhm.
And what matters more is protecting the access media and the position of studios, because again, what we did is something that is emblematic about the power of a group of people working together for something. And I really feel that there's a lot of people in the access media that are uncomfortable with that idea.
Absolutely. I'm a just keep it real. Anthony Bresnikan, you should have kept this one in the drafts, for real.
Mm,
You should have just sent it straight to the trash bin, as a matter of fact, because it was never ever going to be useful or good. Like this portion of the interview just so misses the mark. It's gross, and it reinforces everything. Like what has changed? The reason why a lot of the fandom has been quote unquote toxic, and the reason why we're aggressive against them is because of stuff like this. It's because of trying to lie and twist narratives and paint this picture. And if they're scared of us now, if we're notorious, if they know that if you say something bad about Zack Snyder, you're gonna get swarmed, I'm happy for it. I make no apologies about it. It's okay if now they're writing fluff pieces saying, oh, Zack Snyder is actually like a nice guy. Oh, but his fandom is toxic. Attack us, the fans, and leave Zack alone. I'm perfectly fine with that. They don't they don't do anything for me. They don't pay my rent. They don't contribute to my investment portfolio. They don't contribute to my business, you know, ventures. So I don't care what they think about me. What now gets me and gets me so disappointed is when I see other fans taking the sides of these bloggers. And usually it's fans who are newer to the game because they don't understand how it works. They don't understand why Snyder fans had to go out of their way to make sure that whenever anyone tries to say anything negative about Zack Snyder, we give them pushback. That's all it is. It's a challenge. But what these people want to do is they want to have the freedom to be toxic without the consequences of being toxic. It doesn't work like that, baby. It doesn't work like that. That's not reality. You know? Welcome to the real world. Welcome to the universal law. Okay? If you're meeting toxic fans, what have you done to make them treat you in a toxic way? That's what you got to start asking yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have no problem with them saying that a lot of people in the fandom are toxic or aggressive, and that's perfectly fine. Eh. But don't try to act like you're innocent. Like, oh no, all I said was like I don't like this movie, but everyone is free to their own taste. And then they came and they said I should commit suicide and I should die and I should be raped in the streets. Nah, the tweets that these people make are disgusting. They're gross. They are toxic. So of course you're gonna get toxic blowback. Like there's Kelly Donaldson. This person particularly has a history of using disgusting language and attacking Zack Snyder. You know, talking about how comparing Zack Snyder's filmmaking to furiously masturbating, saying that it's slow motion masturbatory destruction. Oh, I can't get through. Zack Snyder can't get through filmmaking without destroying something or furiously masturbating. Calling Zack Snyder a hack. What do you think the response of that is going to be? Oh, you're a wonderful person. That's cool.
I think you
You're
got
going to get
problems,
some
man.
so you're
Like,
going to get some people at your level who are going to be like, you know what, like that's uncalled for. You shouldn't talk like that, blah blah. You should. But you are going to get some people who are going to come in your mentions and rip you to shreds. But that should be expected. You're an adult. Who does that? Who goes out, punches someone in the face, and like, you're not gonna punch me back. Like it's so illogical. But I
Why do
think
people
that
forget that like social media is a public forum too? Like like they go on Twitter and they say something and then
you
they
know
don't
what it is?
understand when people hit them back. Like, bro, you said it on Twitter.
You,
Like, what's the matter with you?
you know what it is? I'm beginning to like it's one thing that I've always said is that whenever you have an issue or something's confounding you, the correct answer is usually the most direct, rational, logical one. And it's that these people they know these facts.
Mm.
But the truth about it is that they're obsessed with the power that comes with having a platform and a voice. And they've come up against people who have pushed back against that, who have pushed back against they're all there. Oh, I work for Vanity Fair. I work for Variety. I have a blue check mark. I have his followers. I can say whatever I want about any director and do whatever I want. And I'm not getting. And all of a sudden, there's a particular group of people who are like, no, you can't. And that, as Manu said, frustrates them to no end. So let's move on to the next section, so we don't dwell too much on that. We can talk about that for days. What I would just implore people in the fandom to do is this: is and one thing I'm passionate about is that I love our fandom. Do not take the side of bloggers, no matter what you do. All right, like the mafia say, don't take the side of outsiders against the family. Do not. That's something that I will always be passionate about. I lose respect for people in the fandom once I hear them saying, "Oh, oh, you guys are toxic and are giving us a bad name." Bloggers were toxic before we ever even had a name. They do not want us to not be toxic. They want us to not be around, period. We would never have gotten the Snyder Cut if we were quiet. The reason why a lot of us galvanized and banded together was because we needed to against the bloggers. So them disliking us is par for the course. It's okay. It's fine. Revel in it. Be fine with not being liked by bloggers. It's okay. You will still be alive. Trust me. And Zack Snyder's, movies are going to do exceedingly well. Don't worry about it. All right, so there's this fun section that I want us to talk about as we're coming up on the end of the article. It talks about his interactions with Warner Brothers. It says initially Snyder says Warner Brothers just wanted to release the raw footage on his laptop. I was like, that's a no. That's a hard no, he says. And they're like, but why? You can just put up the rough cuts. Snyder didn't trust their motivations. He says, here's why. 3 reasons. 1, you get the internet off your back, which is probably your main reason for wanting to do this. 2, you get to feel vindicated for making things right, I guess, on some level. And then 3, you get a shitty version of the movie that you can point at and go, see, it's not that good anyway, so maybe I was right. I was like, no chance. I would rather just have the Snyder Cut be a mythical unicorn for all time. Snyder estimates that it cost around $17 million to undo Whedon's redo. For that, HBO Max gets 4 hours of hotly anticipated programming and the Hollywood comeback story of a lifetime. Snyder himself gets nothing. I'm not getting paid, he says. He was paid first time, of course. This time he wants creative control, and foregoing a fee helped. I didn't want to be beholden to anyone, and it allowed me to keep my negotiating powers with these people pretty effing strong. He didn't say effing, but I'm saying effing because he got full total creative control and he's wilding out like he should be. So Manu, what are the cool things you glean from in this section?
Really, I just love his just the fact that he didn't get paid so that he could have as much freedom as he wanted. And we're already getting to see that with some of the shots that we saw from the latest trailer, adding a Joker in there, and just even the aspect ratio of the movie. Like he just seems like he's at this point where he's incredibly confident in himself and in his abilities. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier, that he now understands that no matter what, he has the backing of a large segment of fans. And it excites me for Justice League because we're going to get Zack Snyder unleashed. Like
Hmm.
probably the most unleashed we've seen until we see Army of Dead 2 months later, because we're getting spoiled. But I really love his attitude and how he spoke about in the with Warner Brothers about just releasing the footage. He's absolutely right. If you're gonna do this, you might as well do it. And I'm really happy that in a few weeks' time, like, it'll be here.
That's crazy. Crazy to hear you say those words. Wow. Wow. Yeah. For me, the things that stick out to me are Zack Snyder's a very, very smart man. I mean, obviously, you don't get to have that level of prolific success by being an idiot, except if you're Joss Whedon, then you will eventually lose it all. But um, he people need to key into this fact. One, Snyder says he didn't trust their motivations, which is what we've been saying all along. Like these people, no matter what they say, and I'm when he says there, we're talking about people, the decision makers, the
Who are still
Hamad
there.
and the Tommy Emmerichs, the people there. Do not trust them. Do not like if you're in a room with them, don't turn your back to them. Like if you're making your way like out the door, just back up facing them. Like I'm all right, so I'm leaving now. Like he didn't trust them because that's they're not trustworthy. Also, I thought it was very interesting that he said you get the internet off the back, which is probably your main reason for wanting to do this. And that's one thing I had a discussion with him, and I told him that part of our strategy for for getting the Snyder Cut was making them look bad by yelling so loudly and so continually to the point where they're just like these people just we just need to make them go away, and because it's just a constant embarrassment to them, a constant reminder of their failure, a constant reminder of their failure to be able to leverage, this amount of fervor, all that stuff. Also, the toxicity itself, the rabidness of the fan base. Trust me when I tell you this, that Zack Snyder will never and will never ever claim the toxicity. Ever. And he should not. But trust me, he knows that it's useful. He's not stupid. And that's one reason why nobody in this fandom can ever pull up any of my tweets and be like, "Oh, Lupe, you're a toxic person." People generally don't call me toxic. The only reason they call me toxic is because I embrace the people in our fandom who are toxic, because it's a special skill. Like some of us, we cannot exist in that state of toxicity for a long time, where it affects us mentally. We can't do it. But there's some people who live in it, who revel in it, and they're useful, very very useful. They have bailed me out of like being bombarded by Marvel fans and stuff like that. They've cleared the fog of war for me. So I understand. There's no way Zack Snyder doesn't understand that people, challenging these people aggressively is necessary. Because I'm telling you, because of how quote unquote toxic this fandom is, I've seen I've seen a change in the behavior of bloggers. I have seen it. So you can say the ends justifies the means, or you can take the path of, what did we do? Did we sell our souls to get there? Regardless, I don't. That's a great philosophical debate, but I think that line is very important to understand that the collective voice, including the toxic parts, including the parts that, when we were bombarding Warner Brothers with letters and with phone calls and flooding their inboxes and emails and flooding their Twitter posts, we were called toxic for that. Remember, like that's one reason why Umberto is persona non grata in this fandom. Like he said that we're crazy, that we're harassing, you know, and there were people in the fandom who agreed with him, you know, because they want to look good, they want a good name. But some of us were like, look, you may call it toxicity, but it works. You do not make omelets without breaking eggs, and I really wanted to point to the fact that there's a section where he compared, um, Snyder fans to people who burn, during riots and stuff like that. And I've always said it. You will never ever hear me See, like get mad at people who like riot, like, oh, they're not peaceful or whatever when they're destroying property. This is when people are aggrieved, when people are protesting, like people who want peaceful riots and stuff like that, peaceful riots, that's an oxymoron, are people who don't want the issue to move. That's just that's just the truth of life, you know. One of my favorite quotes is from it's not from Marcus Garvey, but from one of the early civil rights leaders who says, people who want change without agitation are like people who want, you know, uh, crops without the beating of the rain, and who want, fields without the plowing and tilling of the land, something to that effect. And so anyway, that's just to go on about how, like, this is it's an important philosophical thing that might go over people's heads, and it's a debate that's constantly had. But at the end of the day, we are here, and I'm glad for that. Let's move into the latter sections. This is like the end of it. So, you know, Deborah Snyder, and Zach, they have these beautiful words. As for the fan base, the Snyder movement has contributed $500,000 to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention through donations, sales of merchandise, and auctions of props. Deborah says people have been saying, "Oh, they attack people." Her eyes tearing, but this fan base has saved lives. As much as they wanted something for themselves, they've come together for this amazing cause. You feel so helpless trying to help someone and you don't know what to do. It's literally life or death. And I felt like we didn't really know where to turn. Rebuilding the story he always envisioned is what invigorates Snyder the most. He can go as deep and dark as he likes. He can say to hell with DC's official timeline for the characters and let his alternate version of the Justice League story wind up wherever he pleases. He has put Superman in a sleek black suit instead of the iconic blue and red. He's added Joker. He has reshot the ending with a hero cameo that will blow hardcore fans' mind. In what may be a divisive move, he's presenting the movie in IMAX format. Some may be irritated seeing Justice League on HBO Max with black bars on the side. Snyder pretty much doesn't care. The director has also layered some deeply personal elements. The movie closes with Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, performed by Alison Crowe, a friend who also sang at Autumn's funeral. It was Autumn's favorite song. Now it's an elegy to her. Justice League, however anyone feels about it, is made of things and people Snyder loves too. When you think about the catharsis of it, if I was a potter, I would have made some pottery to look for some way through this, he says. But I'm a filmmaker, so you get this giant movie. He wants people to love it. If some don't, he's all right with that. With all of it. Whatever comes, he's okay. What is my worth? What am I supposed to do? What am I about? Zack Snyder's answering Autumn's questions for himself. So it's a great conclusion. Guys, do you have any concluding thoughts on this section and the article in general? Let's start with Christian.
I actually really like the way it ends. It seems like he's very much at peace with everything. You guys mentioned everything about him not getting paid, or he's already made his money. He gets to make what he wants to make. He gets to create what he wants to create, which at the end of the day is what artists really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's passionate about it. He's poured his heart and soul into it. It's okay if some people hate it. That's going to happen. I don't like everything he makes. I love some of the shit he makes. That's art. There's paintings and music and everything out there that falls into the same category with everybody. So I actually really like this. It's an uplifting ending to this particular article. I love the fact that it ends with Autumn's words, that it's reminding you that this, in a sense, is also about her, that her presence and her influence is still felt in he and Deborah's lives every single day, and that's a huge part of it. Closing with what the movement has done for that particular foundation and as well as that charity. The only thing I'll say before I stop is that I really wish these positive aspects that we got at the end, there was more of that, in the rest of the article. We just talked about how there were like 2 sentences and that's it. Talking about the toxicity in the fandom, and you don't get the flip side. You don't get to hear other people's side of the story. It's just got such a great uplifting ending. And I think that could have been the bulk of, you need a little bit of the controversy in the article. I agree. But I just think there was so much more that could have been done to really highlight what was highlighted at the end.
Mm. Well said. Well said. Manu, what about you?
I agree with what Christian said. He's right. I'm looking forward to this movie. And honestly, I'm looking forward to whatever comes next in Zack's career. I think that whatever he decides to do, it's going to surprise and astonish many.
Mm.
But with that said, you can't forget the journey that we took to get here. You can't forget, um, the very sad part of this story as well. I wish that the movement would have been recognized for all of their good works and their organized principles. It's unfortunate that we weren't, but you know what? We got what we wanted at the end of the day. And we've never wanted or needed validation or acceptance or even an apology.
Mm-hmm.
All we've ever wanted was each other. All we ever needed was each other, and we've been able to do great things together. So whether the rest of the world sees that or wants to see that or understands that, it really doesn't matter because
Mm-hmm.
they're not part of this. This was
Mm-hmm.
our thing. This is for us. And I think that it's important to remember that in the weeks and months ahead that you have to enjoy this. Enjoy it, embrace it, and realize that you've won. Everything that you're going to hear from other people is just it's like it's like blood in the wind because they lost and deep down they know that
Mm-hmm.
they've lost. We
Mm-hmm.
won. Let's
Mm-hmm.
let's take our victory lap. Let's enjoy these weeks and let's embrace the Snyder Cut for whatever it is when it comes out. Because you know what? By the end of this thing, elephants might be like flying on birds and shit. We got a fucking Jesus Joker. Who the fuck knows what Zach got going on in here? So I'm
Elephants flying with
excited.
birds.
I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm relieved. And I'm just really looking forward to the next chapter of not only Zack Snyder or Justice League, but about, what this could mean for all fandoms going forward. Like, who else is going to try to do what we've done, and how will that be received by the world? Because I think that in a lot of ways, this could be a paradigm shift. And I hope that everybody is taking note and paying attention to all we've seen in the past few weeks. Blue Beetle, Supergirl, these attempts to kind of drive attention away from the cut, and it's not working.
At all.
None of the stuff that they've announced has even been able to grab 1% of the traction that the Snyder Cut has been imbued with. And I think that Warner Brothers is paying attention to that, and the world is going to take notice. So, let's just enjoy what's to come.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you guys. You guys said it very well. For me, just hearing, I don't care what Kaylee McDonald McDonald Hoffenheiser thing. What's her name? Who cares?
Doesn't matter.
Um, what she or Dr. Lamentenda, whatever their names are, insignificant people. I don't care what they think about us as fans. I care what the Snyders think about us as fans because that's who we did it for. We did it for them. We did it for us. We are all we got. Okay, and that's what I want. That I'm reverberating Manu's sentiment, but expanding, expanding on it. This ending with Deborah Snyder tearing up and acknowledging the fandom for how much of a positive contribution we've made to them and to the world. That's everything for me. That's all we ever wanted. We wanted to uplift the Snyders in every single way that we could, and we accomplished it. So whatever anyone says, oh, they're toxic, they attack people, good. It's fine. We'll take that. There is a sacrifice and a cost to being. That's one thing that I love about Zack Snyder's movies, and relaying myth telling and fables and stories and philosophies and bringing everything full circle. Zack Snyder shows heroes, and those heroes, there is a price for digging deep and getting in there and fighting. You do not leave unscathed. It's a universal law. It's not all rainbows and sunshine. So if at the end of the day, we're known as a toxic fandom and people revile us and hate us and spit at us, well, they were doing that in the beginning in the first place. But if that's the price that we have to pay for peace of mind and happiness for the Snyders, and for them to, just have for them to just have some relief and some blessing, I'm glad. I'm glad about that. And just as Zach, said at the end of it, if some people love us, that's fine. If some people don't, that's all right. Whatever comes, we'll be okay.
Because we're criminals, Lupe. We've always been
We've
criminals.
always been
Nothing's
criminals.
changed.
Nothing has changed. Well said. So that's our special episode of ENN for the day. Thank you guys for listening. It went on a lot longer than we wanted it to, but I think it's a really comprehensive deep dive into this article, and you got our thoughts. I want to thank my co-hosts Manu and Christian for coming on this ride, for backing me up, riding shotgun, taking the wheel. It was a beautiful road trip through the wastelands. And before we go, I'd like you guys to say goodbye to the people. So let's start with Christian.
Hey, everybody, go to your local comic shop and pre-order Justice League 59 with the
Yes,
Snyder
sir.
Cut, with the variant covers. Support local, man, definitely. This was great. Thank you all. And you can find me on both Twitter and Instagram at the same place. I'm at chart6363.
All right. And Manu.
After you've done what Chart did and you went down to your local comic book shop, BVS 4K Ultimate Edition in IMAX is about to be listed by Walmart and Target. So go ahead and cop that as well, because if that does well, who knows what else might come in the future. And you can find me at ManUnited0710 on Twitter, and it just kind of feels good to be diving into podcasting again. It's been a while, so thank you for having me on, Lou.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to having you on many more episodes. We're going to continue our previews that we have titled Countdown to the Snyder Cut. You're going to get episodes of that every single week. When the Snyder Cut comes out, rest assured you're going to get a review. You're going to get a deep dive roundtable discussion that's going to be hours long. It's going to exhaust the entire, movie. You're going to get video essays from us as well. So just, you guys, we have a lot of amazing things, in the oven, cooking up bacon for you guys. And I have been yours truly, Lupe. You can find me on Twitter at LiveLoveLupe. You can find me on Vero at LiveLoveLupe as well. We have been yours, The Film Exiles. You can find us on Twitter at The Film Exiles. And you can find us on Vero at The Film Exiles as well. Stay safe. Be good to each other. Cherish each other, hold each other. Wherever you go, whatever you do, stay exiled.